In short, she did more damage to the Justice Department's reputation than any Attorney General in history. In just over a year, Bondi transformed the department from the world's preeminent law enforcement agency into a weaponized political battleground, providing a shield to protect the president and his cronies and a sword to attack his enemies.
Pam Bondi just got fired. And before the door even closed behind her, Senator Dick Durbin walked into that chamber and said out loud what this administration spent a year trying to bury. This is the full floor statement, and every sentence of it is a charge. If you believe the Justice Department exists to serve the law and not one man, hit subscribe and drop a like, because this is exactly the kind of accountability moment they do not want spreading.
She failed to successfully prosecute the president's enemies, and there are many. Not for lack of effort, but because courts and grand juries blocked her baseless prosecutions. Now Ms. Bondi has been replaced by the president's former personal criminal defense lawyer, who in his first days as acting Attorney General is doing everything in his power to placate his former client. Earlier this month, the Justice Department moved to vacate the seditious conspiracy convictions of members of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers for their key roles in leading the January 6th insurrection. The president has a determined strategy to wipe off the face of the earth all evidence of what happened in this complex on January 6th. It won't work. Those violent extremists helped organize the violent assault on law enforcement in the Capitol building in an attempt to forcibly block the constitutional transfer of presidential power. We have witnesses who come before this committee who won't answer the question of who won the 2020 presidential election. They also gloss over January 6th as not worthy of comment. It was a moment I'll never forget as a person who served in the Senate and the House. This Capitol building represents more than just a building. It is a symbol of our democracy. It was physically, violently attacked, and the men and women who risked their lives, and some gave their lives in defense of this Capitol, deserve better than what we've seen from this administration.
Watch what Durbin said. What you just watched was not a eulogy. That was a criminal referral delivered from the Senate floor. Durbin did not say Bondi made mistakes. He said she ran a weaponized political battleground, a shield for the president's allies and a sword for his enemies. That is not a policy critique. That is a description of a corrupt institution operating under direct orders from the Oval Office. And notice what he named as her failure. Not that she overreached, not that she lacked judgment. He said she failed to prosecute Trump's enemies because courts and grand juries physically stopped her. Meaning she tried. Meaning the orders were there. Meaning the only thing standing between political imprisonment and the American justice system was judges doing their jobs. For now. Then Durbin named her replacement, Todd Blanche, the president's own criminal defense lawyer. The man who sat next to Trump at the hush money trial is now running the Department of Justice. And his first act was to hand clean slates to the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers who led the assault on January 6th. The pattern does not hide itself anymore. Watch what Durbin said next, because it gets worse.
They brought this paper-thin indictment for one reason. The Southern Poverty Law Center is held accountable MAGA extremists who are allies of this White House. Just yesterday, the Department of Justice brought its second baseless indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. Now, I'm not a personal fan of Mr. Comey for a variety of reasons, but I will tell you this prosecution, personally ordered by the president, who despises Comey for overseeing the investigation of Russia's interference in the 2016 election, this indictment is laughable. I'm confident Todd Blanche's vindictive efforts will ultimately fail again, just like Pam Bondi's baseless prosecution of one of the president's enemies. The acting Attorney General is also weaponizing the Justice Department against dreamers and those protected by DACA.
J. Edgar Hoover. Durbin said it out loud, and he was not reaching for a dramatic comparison. He was reaching for the accurate one. Hoover ran the FBI for 48 years by targeting political enemies, burying dissent, and serving whoever held power longest. He wiretapped Martin Luther King. He blackmailed senators. He weaponized federal law enforcement as a personal instrument of political control. The Church Committee in 1975 exposed him. It took decades and a constitutional crisis to rein in what he built. Todd Blanche has been acting Attorney General for weeks. He is already moving to erase January 6 convictions. He is already indicting civil rights organizations. He is already filing a second baseless indictment against James Comey, a man Trump has despised since 2017 when Comey confirmed the Russia investigation to Congress. That is not justice. That is a personal enemies list with a federal seal on it. The mission has never been stronger. That is what this administration says every time the DOJ moves against a political target. The mission. The mission of what exactly? The mission to prosecute a civil rights organization for tracking extremists. The mission to hand pardons to insurrectionists. The mission to deploy DACA deportation orders against young people who grew up pledging allegiance to this flag. The mission has never been stronger. Bondi tried to prosecute Trump's enemies and failed because courts stopped her. The Proud Boys and Oath Keepers convicted by juries are now getting clean slates from the president's own former defense attorney. The Southern Poverty Law Center, which documented and exposed those same extremists, is now under federal indictment. James Comey, who investigated Russian interference in a U.S. election, has now been indicted twice. He fired the inspector generals. He fired the career prosecutors. He fired the FBI officials who ran the January 6th investigations. He installed his personal lawyer at the top of the Justice Department. This is not a policy shift. This is institutional capture. The difference between what is happening at the DOJ right now and what Hoover did is that Hoover at least tried to hide it. This administration is doing it on camera during business hours and daring anyone to stop them. The mission has never been stronger.
3,603. 3,603. That's how many licensed attorneys there are in the state of Montana. When you look at the person who has been nominated to serve a lifetime appointment to the federal district court in Montana, you wonder, couldn't the White House find one attorney in Montana to recommend for a lifetime appointment who has actually tried a case before a court? Ms. Kathleen Lane is not remotely qualified to be a district judge. That's not my opinion alone. That's the official rating by the American Bar Association. Ms. Lane is the first judicial nominee to receive a not qualified rating during President Trump's second term. There were many in the first term, but this is the first in the second term. As the ABA explained, its rating is, quote, based on issues with her experience, which is an important component of competence. The ABA found that Ms. Lane had failed to gain, quote, substantial courtroom and trial experience in the less than 9 years since she's admitted to the bar. Now, what contributed to that assessment? Was it political bias, as has been mentioned already? Not at all. The ABA detailed in their letter, quote, Ms. Lane has never tried a case as lead counsel, either civil or criminal. Moreover, quote, she's never conducted a direct examination, picked a jury, or offered an opening statement or closing argument in a trial.
3,663 attorneys in Montana, and the White House nominated the one who has never tried a case, never picked a jury, never delivered an opening statement, but does work for the Republican National Committee. That is the qualification. Party loyalty. That is the entire resume. This is what the end stage of institutional capture looks like. The AG is the president's former defense lawyer. The acting AG is already vacating insurrection convictions and indicting civil rights groups. The judicial nominees are RNC operatives with no courtroom experience. The DOJ is targeting the president's enemies by name, on a schedule, in sequence. Pam Bondi is gone. Todd Blanche is in. The names change. The machine does not. Every loyalist who served this administration, believing their proximity to power meant protection, has been discarded the moment they became inconvenient or ineffective. Exhales sharply. Bondi failed to land the prosecutions Trump wanted. She is gone. Blanche will be expected to succeed where she failed. When he does not, and courts and grand juries will stop him the same way they stopped her, he will be gone too. The damage being done to the Justice Department right now will not be repaired by the next administration's first 100 days. It will take years. It may take a generation. Drop a comment and tell me, when the president's personal lawyer runs the Department of Justice, what exactly is the law protecting?